If you have an unfinished ceiling in your furnace room, basement, or storage room, you might think that you can't use these LED recessed panel lights because they need a hole in a drywall ceiling to fit into. Today I'm going to show you how you can use these lights in an unfinished space without a drywall ceiling to add a lot of extra light to that area. I figured out how to mount these lights to an unfinished ceiling using a very inexpensive 1x3 piece of board. Let me show you how. These common LED recessed panel lights are designed to fit flush with the bottom of a piece of drywall in the ceiling. This junction box goes up through the hole in the ceiling, and then these wings go inside, and because the thickness is 1/2 inch or less, the wing holds it to the top of the drywall, and the bottom of the light sits flush with the bottom of that drywall. When I've tried to use these recessed lights in an unfinished ceiling before, I've tried using a scrap piece of drywall. I've also tried using a piece of plywood. Now, both of these work, but when you have to use a lot of drywall or plywood and cut holes in it, it can get messy, and it also gets quite expensive. I figured there had to be a better way, so I created one. I started with a very common 1x3 inch board that you can buy at any home improvement store for less than $3 for an 8-foot length. I then figured out that 24 inches would probably be enough to span pretty much any ceiling joist span. I cut 2 holes in the board so that the wings of the light can go up through the hole, clip onto the top, then this board can be attached to the bottom of the ceiling joists. Because the light's now going to be flat, it will shine down directly into the area, giving so much more light in that area. I used almost 20 of these hanger boards recently to set up lights in an unfinished work area. Now, that room might get drywall in the future on the ceiling, but for now, it's got much better light. I recorded myself creating these hanger boards so that I can show you how I do it. I started with measuring the boards. So first, measure the distance between the hinges. So in my case, it's 4 inches. This is a 4-inch light. 6 inches, probably a 6-inch light. And so we know that that's where our 2 holes need to be. So we'll set that aside. And we're gonna measure 24 inches. So each of these is gonna be 24 inches. Measure that at 24. And then I want the 4 inches in the center. So that's pretty easy. I'll mark at 10 and at 14. And we want these holes to be in the center. So this is a 1x3, so it's 2.5 inches. So I'll mark at 1 1/4 and at 1 1/4 here. So now I can cut this piece. I'll have 24 inches. Then I'll drill my 2 holes for where the wings of that light are going to go. Next, I cut each of the pieces out of the 8-foot length of that 1x3 board. You can use whatever saw you have available, miter saw, circular saw. I don't have those with me today. I just have my jigsaw, so that's what I'm going to use to cut at each of these marks. Then I drilled each of the 2 holes. To cut the hole, you can use a Forstner bit, an auger bit, or I find the cleanest holes are with a spade bit. Always make sure you have a scrap piece of wood underneath to not damage the floor or your workbench if you're on the workbench. From that 8-foot board, I got 4 hanger boards. Now go ahead and wire up the lights. I have a whole video on how you can wire up these recessed LED panel lights. I'll link to that up above and in the description below. Let me show you how I mounted one of these lights in the unfinished ceiling.
Start by moving the junction box from the light out of the way. Sometimes tucking it up in the wires makes it a little easier. Then take your hanger board, and I've inserted a couple of 1 1/4 inch screws already into each end where I know I need to place them, and drill those screws into the ceiling joist up above. And don't feel you have to drive them really hard, and you don't need anything more than 1 1/4 inch screw because you're not having to drill it in all that far. Once those two are attached, then what you can do is you can actually grab the light part. Now the light and the junction box go together using this little pigtail, and almost all of these lights have a little slot that you have to slide a little bracket into in that light. So sometimes you've got to move that around, take a look and line it up here, make sure it gets lined up properly, and then it'll slide together, and then use the collar to screw that together so it's tight. Now we can move the box again a little bit out of the way, use the wings, put one wing inside one hole, push that up, put the wing in the other hole, and make sure that the light is flat against the bottom of the board, and then position the box so it won't fall down.
Now if the cavity is really narrow, you're going to end up with quite a bit of the board sticking out beyond each of those ceiling joists, like I had in this particular situation for this unfinished area. Now there's a trend to leave a ceiling unfinished and simply paint it to give the illusion of more height in especially a basement area. Just Google painted unfinished ceiling and you'll see lots and lots of examples. Now if you're going to do this, one of the things you might want to do is to actually have that light up in between the two joists so that the bottom of the light is at the same level as the bottom of the joists. You can easily do this with the hanger boards. What you need to do is to cut the length of the hanger board to fit exactly between those two ceiling joists, and then put pocket holes on each end of the hanger board. Mount that hanger board 1/2 inch above the bottom of the ceiling joist. This means that when the light is attached, it will be at that same level as the bottom of the ceiling joist, and it'll give you a more finished look. This hanger board method can also be a great temporary solution when you're renovating a space or finishing a basement. Instead of having the lights hanging down and banging your head into them every single time after you do the wiring, what you can do is you can use the board to attach it to the ceiling joists, get the lights up out of the way so you stop banging your head into them, get great light in the area, and then when you're ready to finish the ceiling, just take the lights out of the hanger board, remove the hanger board off the ceiling, finish it with drywall, cut the holes, and then you just pull the pigtail from the box through, attach your lights, and now you have lights in your finished area. So that's how you can add these recessed LED lights using a hanger board, either as a permanent solution in an area you don't plan on finishing, or as a temporary solution when you're doing some renovations. Let me know in the comments below if you have used these type of lights or are planning to use them in one of your DIY projects at home. If you want to see how to wire these lights, here's the video where I show you how to do that. Thanks for watching.